dais. Now recognize Mr. Meadows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Ross, thank you and your entire team for being here. As you are well aware, this is not the first hearing on the census. In fact, when the Republicans were in the majority, we had not one, not two, but multiple hearings and briefings as it relates to the census. And I see some of your staff behind you shaking their head yes. They will know that I have not always been the most positive when it comes to where we are in our census progress. I do want to state for the record today that your team has been extremely responsive to the point where we had critical missions. In fact, some critical missions that still exist today that we should be using this hearing for, when we talk about end-to-end testing, when we talk about the security, the cybersecurity of what we're going to actually implement in this new process of gathering information, Mr. Secretary. And so I want to say thank you for listening to the calls in a bipartisan way of really looking to make sure the census is reliable and one that actually counts the citizens of this great country and every person that is here. Now, with that being said, that's not what this hearing is about, sadly. And we can see by the crowds and the cameras that this has nothing to do with making sure that the census is accurately implemented and cybersecurity is dealt with. In fact, it has just the opposite. This comes down, as the gentleman from Ohio, the ranking member, indicated, to one question and why we're asking that one question. Now, Mr. Secretary, I'm sure we'll hear from your testimony today that this is not the first time that we've asked the citizenship question on the census. In fact, when President Bill Clinton was in office, we actually asked 1 in 6 people if they were a citizen of the United States of America on the census. But it wasn't just then. Every 10 years, predominantly we have asked this question, whether it's been 1 in 6 or 1 in 5, or even dating back to the 1950s and 40s when we asked everyone this question. All of a sudden, the census has taken on a new height of political spectrum that I fail to realize. Why would we not want to know if someone was a citizen of this great country or not? Now, when we look at this, to go even further, Mr. Secretary, here's my concern. The Supreme Court has weighed in on this. In fact, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Thomas both raised concerns that when we start to ask questions, that it would be used to influence the courts. In fact, they ruled on it and said we shouldn't be doing that. But yet here we are today asking questions to try to influence the highest court in the land. Now, I say that. These are not just my words. It's actually the words of a member from this particular committee. A member from this committee actually said, and I quote, that he hopes that the testimony today, quote, that the courts can use it, close quote. Now, if we're setting up a hearing today to try to bypass what the Supreme Court has already ruled on, and yet we're thinking that we're going to do this in the name of being great supporters of the Constitution, that's not accurate, Mr. Secretary, and I'm troubled by that because it is very clear what the Supreme Court has asked. It's very clear what our role should and should not be. And yet we look at this particular question. Are we saying that asking a citizenship question is unconstitutional? I hope not, because we ask that on a variety of other things. We ask it many times for a driver's license. We actually ask whether you're a citizen or not in order to get a firearm in the state of California. Should we take the citizenship question off and make it easier for people to get firearms regardless of whether they're a citizen or not? I don't know that we would get the same response from my friends and colleagues opposite. Mr. Secretary, we are here today, and we're hoping for very clear and transparent testimony from you. I expect that we will get that. But yet, just be clear. Many of the questions that you will receive today have nothing to do with accurately counting the number of people that are here in the United States of America. It has everything to do with politics and everything to do with trying to make sure that one particular message comes across. And Mr. Chairman,